Friday about it. We wrote stories Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on it. On Sunday, scores of mainstream newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, the London Telegraph, and others, reported exactly what we told you on Friday. That Gordon Brown is writing the agreement because a blank check was signed on to by Europe and the United States and England, Canada, and a few other nations, that they would give unlimited taxing power to a private banking board established through the World Bank and IMF. And now Gordon Brown is openly on television announcing that he is the leader of it. He set up the G20 as well, back when he was the underling of Tony Blair. He is one of the most powerful people in the world, Gordon Brown. And he is openly announcing that the West will levy taxes against its people, as if the banker bailout takeover wasn't bad enough, and the planned implosion of the economy for vertical consolidation and integration, as if that wasn't bad enough, that they will now levy unilaterally taxes to be paid to the IMF and World Bank, and that the EU will now go into all the third world nations and will chronicle their industrial development, and that if they don't unilaterally themselves as well cut their carbon emissions, which is a death sentence for tens of millions a year conservatively. I had said hundreds of millions were at starvation level. The UN actually says 900 million are on starvation level every year. Over 15 million starve to death a year. This will conservatively increase it by more than 10 million a year. We're talking about megadeath. Megadeath, deaths in the millions. And they are announcing that if those nations don't make cuts, the IMF and World Bank that have already bought them off, paid them off. They give Nigeria, again, a good example, $1 billion loan in the 70s. Nigeria has paid back with interest over $60 billion in just one loan. The $3 billion loan, they've paid back over $40 billion. Still, they're in more debt. They can never get out of debt. So they take our tax money, give it to the IMF and World Bank. But in the past, Congress every year would be arm twisted into this under the name of aid to other countries. But it's not aid. It's funding for the private IMF and World Bank in foreign aid to come in and take over those countries. And that's in State Department Memorandum 200, of course, from 1973 with Dr. Henry Kissinger, stating it is to reduce population, and if the countries don't reduce population and don't cut food supplies, their governments won't be given the billions of dollars. So it's a payoff. So what's been announced is that world government is here whether you like it or not. And here is the London Telegraph on that. There'll be nowhere to run from the New World Order. And it goes on to say the Committee to Save the World, Barack Obama, Nicolas Sarkozy, Angela Merkel, Gordon Brown, other leaders at the Copenhagen talks, signed an agreement for their nations unilaterally to fund the creation of the global governance system. Again, they're just coming out of the closet. It was built behind the giant steel curtains. Now they've rolled this juggernaut, this warmock, this colossus of tyranny and death and genocide out into the open, dressing it up as the savior of the world. Here's another key article, London Telegraph. Copenhagen Climate Summit, plan for EU to police countries' emissions. Gordon Brown is drawing up plans for the European Union to become a global warming policeman, monitoring individual countries' compliance with cutting carbon emissions, compliance with carbon cutting targets. So these nations didn't sign on, but through the IMF and World Bank, they're controlled. But the West, in England, Gordon Brown is saying that even if the Parliament doesn't pass all these new taxes, he will implement it. In the United States, in the last week and a half, Obama has said, quote, even if Congress and the Senate won't ratify this, I will unilaterally order, quote, a command and control system to cut, and, quote, it won't be pretty. So it's like a mobster saying, give me what I want or it won't be pretty, bub. I'm going to smash your face in. So just open tyranny in your face. And then there are other headlines out of the Wall Street Journal, President Obama and the New World Order. Here's another one out of the Washington Post. Copenhagen climate deal shows New World Order may be led by the U.S. and China. Here's another one. In the New World Order, sterling should suffer. Yes, England and their dollar, their pound will suffer. When we come back, I'm going to play a clip of Gordon Brown pushing all of this and explaining that, oh, well, we're going to implement this regardless. This is your global government. Then, spy drones to enforce CO2 regulations. This has been announced by Barack Obama. Let me give you a news tip. It's already been going on for at least a decade. We're going to talk about this. So that's how the spin works. They say there's no doubt this is happening. There's no doubt we need these taxes. Oh, the agreement went really well when it actually all blew up in their face, but they don't care. They're dictatorial. They're going to take more money from the West, shut down more of our industries. He lied and said it'll give you more jobs. And then, quote, give it to the third world. No, that means give it to the IMF and World Bank, and that's actually in scores of newspapers breaking down the actual plan, breaking down the program of control. And so they're going to take your tax money and the nations they control, the West, and start giving it to the IMF and World Bank. And the IMF and World Bank, with this private board funded by your tax money, will start monitoring the system worldwide and developing the global governance structure further. Now, here is a short 1-minute clip from the European Union Parliament with a British member breaking down the basic fraud in Brussels.
Mr. Godfrey Bloom, 1 minute.
Mr. President, I take the opportunity of wishing the East European cities well in the coming of the very early skiing season, and snow and ice that's come there, what of course is indicative of the fact that, as independent science has now confirmed, that the globe is actually cooling and has been cooling since 2002, broadly flat since 1998. We're all talking about something here which isn't happening. I've heard time and time again members here talk of CO2 as a pollutant. A pollutant is a life-giving natural gas. It gives me the impression that some of our members haven't had the benefit of a formal education. Isn't this really just about the state being able to get its hand in ordinary people's trouser pocket to steal yet more tax from them? Isn't this all about political control? Isn't all this about politics and big business? The whole thing's a sham. This bogus hypothesis, this ridiculous nonsense that man-made CO2 is causing global warming. Enough, please, before we damage irrevocably the global economy.
Absolutely. But there's this idea that the UN and the IMF and World Bank are stupid and really believe that the Earth is dying because of CO2, that the sea levels are rising when they're not rising. They know it's a fraud. They need something to scare people into relinquishing their rights and freedoms.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
James Delingpole is a best-selling author, journalist, author, TV critic, Daily Telegraph. He also writes for so many other great publications. He's a British journalist and novelist, was educated at Christ Church, Oxford. He is a member of author of several novels and 2 nonfiction books. How to Be Right, The Essential Guide to Making Lefty Liberals History. And Welcome to Obama Land. I have seen the future and it doesn't work. He writes for the Daily Telegraph and is a TV critic for The Spectator. He has a blog, The Daily Telegraph, which he uses to disprove man-made climate change. And this is so exciting to have him on because he's one of the most prolific and detailed writers in the Telegraph. We got big headlines out about global government being established. We've got Gordon Brown. There will be nowhere to run from the New World Order. That's another great writer at the Telegraph, Janet Daly. We have another one, Copenhagen Climate Summit, plan for EU to police countries' emissions. And that's James Kirkup, if I think I'm pronouncing it right. So just great job over there at the Telegraph. And it's good to have James Delingpole on with us. Sir, wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me, Alex.